My name is Cody Kraus, and I'm a real estate broker owner that's obsessed with everything real estate. Investing, building, selling, developing, farming, you name it. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old, and I've learned a ton through trial and error, and I've met some of the coolest people ever. This is a show where I invite these people on to talk about their experiences and mine, plus everything else real estate. Let's go. All right, welcome back to the Everything Real Estate Show, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I have my friend Steve Karrasch on the show. For anybody that doesn't know Steve, who is Steve?
Who is Steve? That your listeners care to hear about. I'm a real estate agent in outside of Vancouver in Surrey, BC. I've been doing that for about 16 years now. Father of two, husband to one, if that makes sense.
It's a good ratio.
And just I've been selling real estate for a while now. I think I did it the right way. I think I got into the industry the right way. And I guess publicly, within the last 3 or 4 years, have quite the persona online now, you would say, specifically on YouTube.
Cool. Can't wait to get into that. Now, Surrey. What should we know about Surrey? Fastest growing city in BC at the moment?
Fastest growing city. We are a large city. We're larger than Vancouver. We are where the people end up, even though they don't want to end up. Nobody says I'm moving to Surrey. They all say I'm moving to Vancouver. And then Surrey actually has the bad rap, right? Like for Ontario folks, we are the Brampton of BC. Right?
So everybody says they're moving to Toronto and their postal code's Brampton. And
exactly.
Okay.
Right. And then once they go, I can't afford that. Then they go, oh, well, what about Vaughan, or what about Markham? And then it's like, oh, it's Brampton's what I can afford. So that's where they end up. And similar, it's almost like a sister city. Like we have a very large South Asian community here. And so that's part of it as well. We've got a really bad rap for like crime and stuff, but you know what? When you actually look, and I've done videos on my YouTube channel about this in the past, when you look at it, believe it or not, actually, specifically with violent crime, Surrey's actually a lot lower than other areas like Vancouver and like Langley. And we may have some higher crime, but it tends to be in fraud and white collar crime. So I guess good to us. I don't know if that's a good thing.
The good kind of crime? I don't know about that, but
safer kind of crime. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
So biggest city in BC. I actually didn't know that. I knew that it was growing. I didn't know that it was bigger than Vancouver. Is there?
I don't know that we're bigger than Vancouver, and we will be. The stat is supposed to be by 2029 we're going to surpass Vancouver in population, but the most recent numbers that are coming out, and there hasn't been a census in a while, actually suggest that we may be at that number at the end of this year.
Documented. Cool. Is there big employers there? Is there industry that's drawing a lot of people? Because it's not cheap. Like I know it's probably more affordable than Vancouver, but it's still not a cheap market by any means.
Yeah, way more affordable than Vancouver, but it is just the suburbs, right? It's a bedroom community. So when I think about, is there one massive industry? No. People like to say, oh, the film industry. Yeah, that goes up and down. For a long time, we had people flying in and out of Alberta for jobs. Obviously, we have the port. If you meet a client that's a dock worker, they're doing fine. But just tons of, most of my clientele, I guess I would base off of lots of IT, lots of things like accountants, like office jobs, jobs, I call them, like real jobs. I wouldn't say we're driven necessarily by, the farm industry we've got all of that. But I wouldn't say there's one sector that really dominates Vancouver.
That's
or
healthy.
The greater Vancouver area.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been in real estate 16 years. How or why did you get into it?
I got into real estate because I have a friend in Seattle that is a big influence on my life, and he was a real estate agent. And, we were talking. He was kind of the guy that like introduced me to like, kind of self-help stuff and that sort of stuff. And then one day I was just talking to him, and he was talking about his job, and I was just expressing, I guess, my frustrations with the job that I had, which was the wonderful world of repairing food equipment. And he was like, "Dude, you got to get something where there's no limit on your success." And that one thing stuck with me. Within 2 years, I think I was licensed, and the rest is history after that.
Cool. And you were part of a team. Did you join the team right away, or did you start as an individual agent and then join the team?
No, I started part-time individual and floundered for a year and a half. And then what I did do was like I worked a 40-hour, 50-hour a week job. And then whenever I was not at that job, so every evening and most weekends, I was in the office. And over time, I was doing open houses and stuff was kind of floundering. Wasn't doing great. 4 deals in my first year. It was all right, but not fantastic. And then took me 9 months actually to get my first deal. And then another moment in my life, another person I'm grateful for was my partner, ex-partner now, retired partner, Chris. Came up to me one day in the bullpen. He was working late because he was a top producer, and he just leans over the bullpen, the kind of dividers where the little cubicles are.
Yeah.
And he just goes, "Listen, I have too much business. You have none. You're with me." And that was it.
How do you argue with that?
I joined on as a buyer's agent. Like within a month, I got married and quit my real job and turned 30 all within 30 days of each other. And next thing I knew, I was a full-time real estate agent. I think I did, I don't know, 45 grand or something, which was a decent income back then for the remainder of the year. And after that, it was, 20, 30 deals per year. And then we kind of grew the team after that. Obviously, I think Chris was better at hiring than I was. So a lot of those team members, actually, we still have on the team today, even though Chris is retired.
Awesome. So if you're going to break something, break it all at once. Quit your job, get a new one, join a team, get married.
Yeah, man, I burnt it all down. My wife had a good a job at the time. We had bought a property together, and we were just basically looking at we could get by on her salary if I was a complete failure. And thankfully, so far to this point in my life, I haven't been. There's still time.
Good. Have you ever seen Molly's Game, the poker movie?
No.
Oh, you should watch it. Great movie. But the guy, he always says to his assistant, she's Molly, "You're here, I'm here." And I feel like Chris totally did that to you. You're busy, or I'm busy, you're not. Let's join up, basically.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, and he did, and he was persistent about it. And thankfully he did. And thankfully I was smart enough to say yes, right? Because that's the tough part in our industry. And I find it tough now, like trying to hire and always looking for team members is there's not many people that want to be the contributing member of the team. There's a whole lot of people that want to be the team leader, right? Yeah. So it's really been it's been quite the journey, and I was very happy in that kind of team manager, kind of second in charge role, like being the assistant coach, right? Everybody loves the assistant coach. Sorry?
You were happy?
I was happy, believe it or not. I just don't show it on my face.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But the hockey saying is everybody loves the assistant coach, but when the head coach gets fired or leaves and then the assistant coach moves up, right? Like, that's the situation I'm kind of in now, right? So.
Yeah. No, I'm just giving you a hard time, and I've had the pleasure to meet a few of your teammates. I know Chandani. I've met her going back like 5-6 years now, I think, when Chris was still around, and Eric. And anyways, you've got a great group of people that stuck with you over it. And one of the cool things that's happened is you guys actually, you successioned Chris's team, right? So it was the Chris Whitehead team, and then the Whitehead Karrasch team, and now Karrasch Real Properties team, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we transitioned directly. So this was, I've now seen it from my side of, and I apologize if we're way too inside baseball for your listener group, but basically we were banner under Chris Whitehead and Associates. And then I've learned now from the buy agent side, like the young coming up side, all the way now to switching over to owning. So I feel like, yeah, we did it successfully. We the succession plan was successful, at least for Chris. I don't know if it'll be successful for me yet. But we did brand and we did switch to my last name being the lead. And the step that was missed was the co-brand.
Okay.
And I love you, Chris, but if you're listening, a lot of that just has to do with the agent thing that we all suffer with, which is ego, right?
Yep.
You got trouble letting go. So basically it came down to one point, I think it was 2019, where I was like, listen, man, this is happening. And we did, I don't want to call it a hostile takeover, but I was like, this is what it needs to be in order for me to be successful in the future. And so we switched the brand. We had a big kind of launch party. We did this we did this charity event pre-COVID many years in a row. And at that event is actually where we kind of came out with, hey, we're switching. And we had banners of the old banner and the new logo and all that sort of stuff. So it was kind of a coming out party. It was really, really fun.
Cool. And so you're obviously still operating in that now. And a few of our listeners might know you from your YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel called?
I hope so. So same as my, sorry, I just turned off my phone. Same as my team name. So in BC, when you brand, you have to brand as a team and it has to be registered. And so I actually just named my YouTube channel the same thing, which is Karrasch Real Properties. And the reason I did that is I think that's the only way I can actually do it legally.
Okay.
So it's a little funny that it's named that and it's not just Steve Karrasch. But I wanted to be in compliance. And back then I was really worried about compliance. And these days on YouTube, it looks like compliance isn't really an issue. So I'm probably silly. I just never changed it.
Well, it's working for you, obviously. So you've been making videos, and a lot of them are locational specific to here's what's going on in Surrey, that kind of stuff.
I would say I do a mix. So if you follow my YouTube channel, so the YouTube channel is specifically for consumers.
Okay.
Basically, what happened is I was a very, I don't want to say maybe polished is the wrong word, but experienced 12 or so years in. I have always done video. Actually, I found my videos the other day from like 2010, by the way. You should pull those up one day. They're absolutely terrible.
Super high resolution.
They're hard to watch.
Yeah.
They're so hard to watch, right? And it was like what realtors thought you should talk about back then. Like, here's how you change a thermocouple on a fireplace, right? Like really stupid stuff. Not like the market's what people want to hear about. So when lockdown happened, I was able to take all my experience and I was like, well, I kind of felt weird phoning people at that time. I know you and I, we connected a ton during that time, but I kind of felt really weird connecting with a lot of clients. So I was like, you know what? I got stuff to say still. So I'm just going to put it out this way. And I put those videos out to my database, my clientele. And then I kind of just hosted them on YouTube for fun. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's something to YouTube. And I watched a podcast with a YouTuber in the States named Graham Stephan, who's a financial podcaster on the Colin and Samir podcast. And he just basically broke down like YouTube. And I was like, oh, I can't not use this. Yep. So then I found out it to be a tool. My first year on YouTube, I think I did 7 deals from it. I want to say 2022, we did 20 plus deals from it. And now it's basically year after year, it's been about a consistent 30% of my business. So I put out content that is really boring. Like I'll talk about a form. Like they updated the most recent contract of purchase and sale, and I'll just explain that to people. And you'll be like, well, nobody's going to watch that. No, but the people that do now understand that I know what the heck I'm talking about.
Yep.
And they'll reach out to me, right? And then I mix in, what you need to know about Surrey, in the area. And then the stuff that gets eyeballs, like if you have an ego and you really want to feed the channel, which you kind of have to do as well, that's all the current event stuff, right? Like the national news, like what's going on. So those are kind of the 3 things that I kind of mix into the channel. But those are like what I would consider medium form content, right? They're 5 to 15 minute videos.
You don't post those on Instagram
a lot of
and get lots of followers, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was posting this stuff on like Instagram and stuff, and like there's just no business on Instagram. But on YouTube, the difference with YouTube is people go to YouTube to learn something and be educated. People go to Instagram or TikTok because they're behind somebody in line at the grocery store, right? They're not actually going to listen to what the heck you're saying. So that's why I gravitated towards it. And I started using YouTube. I never even used it as a service pre 2020. And then when I started realizing, wait a minute, when I need to know something, I go on YouTube to find the answer. All my clients were doing that too, or all my new clients since then were doing that. So
Second largest
yeah,
search platform in the world, YouTube.
yeah, yeah, right. And if I want to do anything now, you remember the movie The Matrix? Whenever they wanted to learn something, they just auto downloaded it into their brains from like some back-end computer somewhere.
It's
That's
basically
kind of
YouTube.
YouTube. It's just a little slower,
That's
right? It's
funny.
just a little slower until AI gets until Elon puts that chip in the back of our brain and AI gets pumped right in. YouTube is the next best thing right now.
I feel like everybody forgot about YouTube when Facebook came around, and then they put YouTube into smart TVs, and then COVID happened, and most people younger than my parents don't pay for cable or satellite anymore. So like I know when everything was going on with COVID, I would go onto my TV and I would look at a news source on YouTube. So I would watch a pre-recorded newscast from whoever the news company was in Canada. We got Global or CBC or CTV or whatever. Or I might watch Daily Wire in the States or whoever, right? But I found I was using that for my source of news. And that's actually when I started following people on YouTube. So I think COVID was probably good for that because people started using YouTube to get their news, but it was probably because Samsung and LG and everybody started putting those apps on their TVs. I think that's really helped YouTube.
And I mean, YouTube is a powerful tool because I think they've gone the other way of the other platforms like Facebook. Now, if I'm a real estate agent trying to meet people on Facebook, I have to pay to get my stuff exposed. I have 700 followers. I've had 700 followers for 10 years, and they don't even see my stuff, and it's not promoted, right? So I have to they're kind of like the mafia, right? Like you got to pay them in order for them to promote your stuff. YouTube is taking the other direction. YouTube goes, if your stuff is good and people want to watch it, we're going to push it out, and also we're going to pay you.
Yeah, and
right. So if you can keep people on our platform and keep us advertising, then at that point in time, we're going to share the revenue with you. So like one is growth and one is like kind of stealing from you. Like they rely on the content, but then they want to suck it out of you. And the other one's like, no, give us more content and we're going to reward you.
and one censors news articles, for example, right? And that's not necessarily Facebook. That's the government of
They
Canada.
they all censored news articles. We just did, we learned that lesson so on the other side of it, we do the podcast, the Tom Story Show podcast. And like, we made the mistake of putting in a certain presidential elect, or U.S. president, name, title. And, that, like we had to change it within an hour of it being launched because it was getting 0 views. So you do have to worry about censorship on those things. So that's why you maybe try and make it not political and more towards, the actual real estate industry, which is what I care about, because why I'm out there is I've got something to say. I want to get it out there to the public so they understand the marketplace. And as a result, they view me as some version of an authority out there. And then, they'll call me when the time's right, when they want to move.
Cool. So obviously YouTube's been a great asset and a great tool for your business. It's helping a lot of your clients. You had one video, I don't know if it's still your most highly viewed video, but it was kind of you complaining about some layouts of condos and then complimenting others. And obviously the pre-sale condo market hasn't been great in the last 2 years, to say the least. So I think there's a lot of people that are trying to get out of their contracts from those or decide if now is a good time to get in. But you kind of said, hey, look, I think these are the ones that are going to do well. These ones I would stay away from. How did that one play out?
So that was just, I don't even know why I did that video. But I just grabbed some floor plans and I was like, I'm going to talk about which ones I like and which ones I don't. And it took off. Just like the other video I have that's crazy on my channel, it was just kind of bitching about, an article that I saw that was no good, and it just took off too. So there's two like videos where I have that are crazy views, but it had nothing to do with that, and I don't think it actually had to do anything with the market. What I discovered with those videos is people like looking at floor plans.
Funny.
So
Okay.
in the middle of the pandemic, we never included floor plans in our listings before, but then we did because we wanted people to see the listing and see the floor plan. So there's no deal breakers. So they didn't even book a showing at all when we didn't want them in the unit if they weren't serious buyers, right? You remember how that was, right? Crazy beginning of COVID. And then we found out, holy crap, look at how many people look at these floor plans. So I guess I just rediscovered that on the channel, and I just give my opinions. And the crazy part about that, the problem with it, I guess, is it didn't really get me any business. It's just people talking about what they like about a floor plan or what they don't like. And that's what you like about a floor plan or you don't like about a floor plan. That doesn't matter if you're in Surrey, right? That can be anywhere. And that video actually took off into the States, and it got a ton of, people were commenting, we don't have this type of floor plan where we are. And it was like Florida, New York, and England, and kind of all over the place. So the thing is with YouTube, though, is if it does go viral, it goes crazy viral.
Okay.
Right? And that gets you exposure. But then does that actually get you the business? My target is to get the business, right? So the YouTube channel is to meet consumers and inform them about the process, about the market. And then the podcast is a little bit about that as well. It informs the market. But the actual super secret time, the actual idea behind the podcast is we knew that the majority of, or not the majority, we knew that a good chunk of our listeners, 10 or 20%, would be Canadian real estate agents. So as a result, the majority of business I get from the podcast is referrals.
Cool. Why don't we talk about the podcast a little bit too?
Sure. Yeah,
so the Tom Story Show, you named it?
I did.
Okay. So
I did. You want the backstory? I'll give you the real legit backstory, because I know when you and I go to like Richard Robbins conferences and stuff, he makes fun of me on stage and whatever. But the real backstory is myself, Tom, and another fella on YouTube were talking about doing a podcast together. And I really wanted to do it. And the other fella backed out, didn't really work out. And then Tom phoned me one day, and he said, and I'm going to go back to that same guy, Graham Stephan, I was talking about before. He's like, Graham Stephan's channel, he has one called Graham Stephan. He's got another one called The Graham Stephan Show. So should we change our YouTube names or titles or whatever to like the Tom Story Show and the Steve Karrasch Show? And I was like, no, that's stupid. Shut up. I don't know what you're talking about. But I still wanted to do this podcast. So again, Tom and I are talking back and forth, and I was like, dude, we got to do this. And he's like, I don't know. I don't think I really want to do it. He's like, what would we even call it? And I was like, well, we'd obviously call it the Tom Story Show. And then he's like, okay, I'm in. Right. And I just remember that from like, I remember that from, I don't know if it's Think and Grow Rich, or if it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's one of those two books where there's like a guy, and he's trying to launch this company, and he knows it's going to make money, but he needs financial backing from somebody else. And he's like, the guy wouldn't do it. And they asked him that question. Well, what are you even going to call this company? And well, we're obviously going to call it, Krause Industries.
Yeah.
I'm in. Let's do it. So that's basically what it took. And I mean, to give Tom his credit, like he's at that time, hopefully not now, but at that time, very well known in the industry. He's very well respected in the industry. And I wanted to leverage that. And I thought we could leverage that better than if we named it like the something real estate show. So that's why we did
everything. Should it change now? Show probably. Like Cody, like an idiot. Yeah. No, all good. And so now you're concurrently running these two channels, basically, right? So you have Karrasch Real Properties, and then you have the Tom Story Show. So I would imagine too that they complement each other in some regard, right? So it's more realtors listening to the Tom Story Show, and that's building your presence and reach, saying, hey, if you know anybody that sells in Surrey, I'm your guy and I can help you out there. Our team can help you out there. Now, your actual audience that's watching Karrasch Real Properties channel is mostly people that live in Surrey or close by in other parts of BC. And a good chunk of it's your database, and then the other chunk is what you hope is soon to be your database, right? So I guess different audiences, different objectives, different content.
Well, yes and no. So our goal was to reach agents with the Tom Story Show, but believe it or not, that it's actually been about 85% consumer.
Okay.
But the agents that listen, like, we're in a lonely business, right?
Very.
Like if you're an agent that's on your own all day, I mean, sure, you get home and your kids are driving you crazy, and you're out all day with people and you're showing them homes, but you get in your car every time and you eat your lunch in your car and you're driving from here to there. And so I just kind of wanted to be like, I work in a team. I don't work that way. So I just wanted to kind of bring in like that, to be that voice for, when you're going out on Sundays to do your open house. I know you got a 45-minute drive towards your open house. Like I wanted to be that thing you could put on the car so you could feel connected to the market, so you could feel connected to other people, learn maybe more from people in the industry. So it has actually gone towards more consumer, maybe than we were planning. But the channel, the actual YouTube channel, like where I get most of my business, the main channel, that's more of a revolving door. Like a podcast, somebody comes back every week.
Yep.
Right. A video channel, like an informative video channel like I have, is more of like I'm thinking about doing something, so now I'm doing research, and that person's probably going to follow me 6 months on either side of their transaction.
Yeah,
But
after you buy your car, you're not going to keep shopping.
Totally. You're not going to phone the car salesman back every time and go, hey, what's going on? Now he's going to phone you, which is my job, to, every 6 months to a year, and make sure that, you want to buy another house, I want to be there. But it does fall off. It doesn't get the same, and you actually see that in the views, right? Like the podcast channel continually kind of goes up, and the other channel can be very up and down. Because, I mean, if you're not in a transaction, you're not really going to care. Or if you're not a landlord at the moment, you're not going to care what the landlord tenancy branch did this week or whatever, right? So it's much more involved in the life cycle of real estate on the main channel, as opposed to the podcast is just a constant reminder, right? The podcast is almost like a bus bench, right? It's just always there. That's kind of the plan anyway. And
Except
hopefully
a lot
people have
better
some loyalty
ROI.
and come back. I mean, so far the main channel is the main channel because it's focusing on, like, it's getting the business, right? But to be honest, I like talking to Tom every week, and we were doing it anyway.
That's funny.
So,
Might as well record it.
Why not monetize it? Like I was looking at our sponsors and what they paid out, because we just did kind of our year end and like our AdSense. It's not nothing, but I mean, it's over $10,000 to talk to your best friend every week, or one of your best friends every week. I don't know if I'm allowed to call my best friend, because my best friend in Seattle that I was talking about earlier might get mad. But it's pretty cool to be able to monetize that. And I look at all of this like, this is really, man, if anybody's interested in the market, they're not listening right now anymore. Sorry. But if they're agents, they are. I almost look at YouTube and podcasting as like, listen, the AdSense isn't making or breaking me, right? Like they do pay me, but it's not making or breaking me. But if you're paying $100,000 this year for all of your advertising, and my advertising is paying me $10,000 this year, that's $110,000 net difference.
That's funny. So
right?
when I said ROI, I was actually talking about the bus bench, because you're like, well, it's kind of like my bus bench. It's always there. And I was going, well, yeah, but ROI on the podcast, way better than the bench.
It's so much better. Like it's actually something I'm struggling with right now, because I want to create kind of that old school farm, and I've been working on it. And I just got it's paid for itself over 3 years, and I think I put 45 grand into it or something. So it's just paid for itself, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? I need to take that money and hire like a video editor and a production person, and I'd be doing way better. But I'm cheap and I don't know, can't figure it out.
I get it.
You could tell me how to do that better.
So I guess that's kind of our chat about online presence in real estate. Obviously, you've done it in a couple ways, the podcast channel, the YouTube channel. It's working out great for you. Do you want to speak any more to that, or do you want to move on to real estate ownership?
No, I don't think I got any more. Let's talk about actual real estate, because that's the way more fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So you're doing what makes sense for you guys. And I think you're constantly reevaluating your holdings and what your goals are with real estate and your investments and all that kind of stuff. So some people are, let's leverage to the moon, buy as many doors as we can. You have a lot more simplified approach, and I like it a lot. And right before the call, we were just going over a couple things, and we were like, "Yeah, so what do you actually have, Steve?" And you told me that, well, I have a suite underneath my primary residence. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not cash flow positive. That just helps offset your household expenses. And you went on to tell me,
That well, it actually pays for my shelter costs now,
how
but that's a
awesome is
result
that?
of being in the market so long, right?
Yep.
So maybe I can kind of walk you through the journey, uh, of which I do think I did it the right way. Maybe I was lucky for the generation I was born into, and I was able to make it happen. But I want to say at about 25 years old, I bought an entry level product for in my market that was a small 2-bed condo, for 100 and something $1,000 back then. And then I did the property ladder thing. So not every 4 years, I guess 4 years. After 4 years, I was able to take the equity, pay down out of that, which I ratcheted up. And I guess I can maybe make a note on that. I'll tell you how to pay down equity faster, maybe right afterwards. But then I was able to move up to a townhouse. So I went from an 800 square foot 2-bedroom to a 1900 square foot 3-bed townhouse, which was fantastic. And then another 4 years, we were able to get into the house. And then we were able to outfit eventually that house with a basement rental. That basement rental did not cover our mortgage initially. Now it does, right? Because rents have gone up so substantially.
And you've paid your
In
principal
the
down.
meantime, yeah, well, principals, I mean, I owe very little on the property now, so I'm lucky with that. And it's also more than doubled in value since I bought that 11 years ago. But in the meantime, there I did own another condo with a partner, of which got sold. Made a good profit off of that as well. Wish I never sold it, but it was in a partnership. And I was given advice one time: if you can get out of a partnership on good terms, do it. So when everybody saw like a good a return, everybody was happy. We just pulled out of that, because when a partnership goes bad and you got to get out, that's not fun.
You're not going to come out in as good shape
So
as when it's good.
yeah, and then so now I have a house, put in a rental downstairs, save up enough. I didn't even save up the equity. I borrowed off a line when money was free a few years ago. I looked at an opportunity where our market is strange because the detached market almost always takes off first, and then townhouses 6 months later chase it, and then condos chase them 6 months. So when the detached market took off in COVID, I was like, oh, I got to buy a condo right now because I've already missed the mark on the detached.
Yep.
So now I'm going to buy a condo, and I bought a condo, and sure enough, it went crazy up. It's down from its peaks, but it's worth way more. And now, thankfully, with rents going up, that now pays for, well, it's always broke even. It's now cash flowing positive. When I renew my mortgage next year, I'm sure it'll probably break even again. But I've got an asset that fully covers itself in the condo, and now I've got an asset that fully covers my where I'm at and in my house. But the benefit of that particular property is I did go really hard on asset pay down. If I did not pay down as hard, my mortgage, I want to say it's going to be upon renewal somewhere around $200,000. I was doing the math, and if I hadn't paid it down, it would have been closer to about 417. So I did work really hard over the last 5 to 10 years to really pay that down quickly. And as a result, that's what's going to make the payment so low when I renew that it's not going to be an issue, right? So that and getting higher rents and all these sort of things.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome to be in a spot through just owning properties. First of all, building equity over time, but also moving up the ladder. So when you do get to the next higher level of value, your asset can also grow at the same percentage, which is then a higher value. And then eventually, if you do it long enough, you should be able to get to a spot where you either have an income from somebody else needing a place to live, or you sell off those assets and live off of the nest egg that you've built for yourself.
Go back to like 2018, 2019, I was hammering down my mortgage as much as I could. So I was doubling the payment. The bank that I had my mortgage with, they would allow you to either double your payment or make a whatever downstroke of up to 10%, basically once annually.
Yeah.
Is what they would allow you to do. And I started doing that. But then all of a sudden COVID happened and I had renewed my mortgage in 2020 and I got a rate of like 1.92. And I was like, I think I'm an idiot for paying down my mortgage quicker right now, just because like it's so cheap. We did have plans to move up into a different home. And I'm like, well, there's no way rates are going to get cheaper than they are right now. So I'm better off putting this money to work maybe in another property or in an RSP than I am continuing to pay down my mortgage at 1.92. But that being said, if no one's done the math on the proportion of interest to principal that you pay in the first year of a 25-year mortgage, I believe the last time I ran the numbers, I ran it at 3.5%, and your first year is still about 50% principal and 50% interest. So even though it's 3.5%, and that's crazy low, not when you amortize it over 25 years. And that's the power of.
See,
Sorry, go ahead.
I took a little different approach than to. So that's the age old theory is, yeah, if you get cheap money, don't pay it off. You go do something else with that money. But I took a totally different approach. I did pay it off because my thought was as soon as I had that low rate mortgage, like I think I got down on my principal residence to a 275 and my condos 189 still, something like that. When I did have low, what I did was I hammered down on the principal at that point in time. And the reason is when it comes out the backside and you know that you're going to renew into a 4 or 5 or 6% mortgage, now I'm not getting blasted with a way higher payment than I was expecting. So I took a little different approach. Probably not the smartest mathematical approach, but it now makes me very happy that I did it because at that point in time, or when I renew now, I don't have like this shock of a higher payment. I think my payment's going to go up $150 a month. Like it's almost nothing.
I don't think paying down your mortgage is ever the wrong answer when it comes to how should I invest my money. And I had a friend of mine ask me the other day, he's like, hey, I got a little bit of a chunk. What should I invest it in? Like I'm hearing about these mix. I'm hearing about, different mutual funds, things like that. And I was like, well, if you've already utilized your RSP and your TFSA, like essentially if you've already made use out of your tax shelters, I would just pay down your mortgage. And he's like, well, I didn't think about that. And I said, well, it's your rate's probably around 4.5%, 5%. He goes, yeah, it's at 5%. And I said, well, if you're looking at it as an investment, your rate of return there is not 5%. It's significantly higher because you're looking at a 25-year amortized loan. And so you might go, well, a GIC can pay me 4, mutual funds averaging 7. Like if I can get 7 in a mutual fund, why would I only use the money to pay off a 4% mortgage or 5% mortgage? I'm like, no. Let's look at an amortization schedule. It's very, very different. If you looked at your actual return on your money and the amount of years that brings off, just throwing, an extra $10,000 a year towards your principal, it's huge. It can take years off after you do it a couple of years in a row, depending on the size of your mortgage.
I had a friend and kind of a business associate I have as a trustee in bankruptcy, and I'm probably too stupid to understand math. I know I'm too stupid to understand the math, but his kind of theory that he was trying to explain to me is, listen, if you get a 5% mortgage and you're paying that down, and then you're going to take that money that you would not lump sum down on it, and you're going to take that money and maybe you're going to go make 8% in some telecom stock, or some bank stock's going to pay you 6% or something like that. I mean, sure, you might hit NVIDIA, but you're probably not going to. So you're going to go get this sure thing. Well, now you're making 1%, 2%, 3%. But he's like, if you pay off the mortgage at 5%, you're basically making 5%. Right? So I took that into mind and I was like, okay, so if I pay this down, I'm going to be doing way better off. Now, recently I've taken a complete 180 on that. I've done that to a spot where now and the reason for that is because of that basement income. So now that I have a spot where my basement income is equal with my mortgage payment and other fees or whatever I have outgoing in my personal life, now that's a zero. And now I can take all that extra money that I would have lump sum down and I could take that and invest it in whatever I'm going to invest in. And right now, with the way things are going in British Columbia towards the favor of the tenant, I'm choosing to keep my tenanted properties, but I'm not choosing to acquire more at the moment just because of headaches and things like that.
So would you look at another real estate market, or would you look at maybe diversifying through like a REIT or a MIC or something like that?
I have some REITs. I have some money in mix. Definitely diversify. I've looked at other markets and I've never felt comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know them, right? I only want to invest in stuff I know, and that's where even stocks are like, I don't know. I'll get some S&P, but I'm not going individual stocks. So
That's Buffett. Only invest in what you know.
yeah, and I do invest in real estate. I'm trying to learn more about stocks, but I definitely don't want to go to like I looked at Edmonton and Calgary 2 years ago, which probably would have been a great move. But then I was doing research on like Edmonton, for instance. Everybody I spoke to that has tenants there were like, dude, the tenant pool in Edmonton is a different thing than it is in Vancouver. So you better learn. Like those tenants get up and leave all the time. And you might not know until 3 or 30 days later when your rent doesn't show up. And then you go back to the house, or your property manager, because you're out of town, goes to the house and they're like, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And they didn't serve notice or nothing. They're just gone, right? So I didn't want that. Being a landlord is a headache. It's a headache because it's worth it, but it's a headache. And at this point in my life, with a couple of still fairly young kids at home, and a point in my life where I'm running a big business, I don't necessarily want to be a real estate tycoon. I look at myself first and foremost on the professional level as being a real estate agent, and that's helping other people transact.
Cool. One thing just on that note too, your bankruptcy friend, I think of Dave Ramsey right away. So people always ask him like, hey, I want to, put some money in this investment. It's looking like I could make 8 or 10%. And he'll go, well, hang on. Do you have other debts? Well, yeah, I have a student loan. Well, what's the rate on the student loan? Well, 6%. Okay. Well, you're hoping to get 10% on that other investment, but if you only get 4, you're -2 because you're carrying debt at 6%. So anything that you're making as a return to actually be a positive has to outperform the 6% debt that you're offsetting it with. So I could for sure have a guaranteed payoff of 6% by clearing that debt from my name, and then reevaluate and go into a different thing after that. But stocks always sound great until they go down in value, as they tend to do. Sometimes, not all the time. They go up more often than they go down, depending on the company. But a sure thing is I owe a debt and I pay it off, and now I don't owe that debt anymore.
Yeah, I was looking at my stocks today, and trust me, I wasn't happy with them today in particular. Other days I've been happy with them. Maybe I can also help out on a way to actually pay down that faster. Sure. So I understand I did this more so when I had a real job and a paycheck, as opposed to commission sales that I'm in now. And I also understand that happened when prices were lower, but my wage was also lower, right? Like I think I bought my first property on $17 an hour, right? But back then that was a pretty good wage. Man, I'm starting to feel old here. But what I did was this simple strategy that had me in a way better spot within about 6 months of moving in to my place. And that was every time I got a raise at work, no matter what amount it was, let's say it was $1. So I went from 17 to $18. I took 50 cents of that dollar before tax, not after tax, and I increased my payment by that much with the lender. The lender I used at that time was TD, so they would allow you to increase payments up to double, I think. So for instance, $1, so that's 80 hours in a pay period, so $40. So I went and took that $40 and increased on my payday that payment. So instead of, I think my first ever mortgage payment was $663, I increased it to $703.
And then you still got $40 left, and 30 of that's going to go to income tax. And then you keep $10 for your house. Yeah. So you end up with the $40 back. Let's face it, 20 of that's going to income tax for sure. But you still get to increase your life
by $20 per paycheck or whatever you want
But
to
just
call
a
it.
little bit.
Now,
not
obviously,
significant.
Yeah, but let's say now who's getting a dollar raise now? Maybe people are getting $5 an hour raises, right? Like whatever that number happens to be. But it doesn't matter what the number is because it's a percentage game. But so that's what I did. And then where it really triggered me is it was definitely TD. So I had my first mortgage with TD. When you go into TD and you do an increased payment, they print you out this slip, and that slip says, okay, here's your old payment, here's your new payment, here's your new amortization, and here's how, does it just say the new amortization and it's less, or it's like new amortization on old amortization? But whatever it is, it shows you the differential of how much time you knocked off your mortgage.
Yep.
And my first $40, I knocked off 3 years.
Isn't that crazy?
And I was like, oh, what? 3 years just for this? I mean, at that time, $40 was my wife and I going out for, Vietnamese beef noodle soup and renting a video at the Blockbuster, right? So that was our like date money or whatever. So I was like, that's not really that much. And then the next time you do it again, and you're like, man, so not only is this thing at 25 years, it's down to 23 years, but the next time I did it, it went down to like 21 and a half years. I'm like, oh, this is crushing for not really losing it. And not only am I not losing something, I've already increased because I still get the rest of that raise to spend on the rest of my life. So that was the one thing that I did the entire time I had a real job. I did stop doing it when I became commission sales. And then what I did with commission sales is I changed my mortgage structure to be partially fixed payment and then partially variable, because we get big chunks of commission at different times.
Yep.
Well, if I have a $20,000 or $30,000 commission, or just even, $5,000 or $5,000 commissions come in at a time, what's the point of me having that just in a 1% high interest savings account? I was like, I'm going to put that on the balance against the line of credit portion of my mortgage.
And then
right?
you can always pull it
And
out
that
when you
was
need it still.
You could pull it out in emergency, but you know what? When I got my line of credit, so I have a Manulife One on my home, and my mortgage broker told me, he's like, you're going to be one of two people. There's two things that happen to people with line of credits. One, you're going to spend to the max, and you're going to screw yourself. You're going to think this is all free money. That's scenario number one. He's like, that's more than 50% of the people that.
Right?
It's literally connected. Yeah, debit card to my house, right? Yeah. And then the other thing he said is, you're gonna do nothing but try and pay it off. If you're a saver type, you're gonna try and pay it off. If you're the spender type, you're gonna spend it all. He's like, the problem with paying it off is your wife's gonna be mad at you because you never want to do anything, because all you're worried about is paying it off. I'm happy to report I am the latter.
Good. Your wife is not.
Right? So I mean, we're starting to explore things now. But again, so I took that portion. Let's say when I bought my house, that portion was, I want to say 175,000. I can't remember exactly what it was, but let's say it's 175. And then there's 300 on like the fixed portion. So you owe like 475. Well, that 175, I smashed that down, right? Because I was just like, no, we're going to pay this thing. We're going to pay this thing. And then we bought the condo and we put that on the line. So I actually bought my condo 100% finance and it broke even just because of low interest rates. And at that time, we also paid that down. But now we're at a spot where, again, that rent covers the mortgage and living expenses, not living expenses, shelter costs, let's call it.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, now that covers itself, this other money that we have, we can start spending some of it. And then the rest of it that we would normally pay on our mortgage is now getting invested into the markets. And I think that's kind of a strategy that's worked out well. But I mean, I'm going to be 45 this year, which is crazy to say. I still feel 28.
Yep.
I don't look 28, but I feel 28. now I view like the next 20 years as probably being my best, right? Like from 45 to 65 is like you're probably still hopefully healthy. You've built up a nest egg so you can start to enjoy it. So you might as well enjoy it, because I feel like there's a whole lot of people. Everybody thinks like 65 to 80 is when they're going to really enjoy things, man. Your health turns real quick in your early 70s. So
that's for sure.
I think now's the time to kind of, I mean, I'm definitely not going dropping. I feel really bad every time I spend $1, right? Like, but I got to force myself to do it.
Cool. Well, that was a lot. I didn't expect to get schooled in paying down my mortgage today, but I'm glad it took that turn that it did.
Sorry to talk too much. See, this is why I have a YouTube channel and a podcast. I talk too much.
I think it's great. That's why I called you to be on it. That's probably a good place to wrap it up for today. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with?
No, follow my channel. No, I appreciate you having me on, man. This is fun. I'm glad to see you're doing something like this. I will plug actually your audience if they're still listening to me this late in. Cody Karrasch, one of our most viewed episodes on our podcast, The Tom Story Show. So it absolutely took off. Everybody loved what you had to say as well. So maybe we can kind of cross-pollinate audiences here and expose people a little bit more to not only the industry, but the markets as well.
Love it. That'd be great. I will leave everybody with something on your behalf then. It was, I think, the last little giant I heard you share, which is pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch, man. Yeah, absolutely. No, that was on, I think, at a Richard Robbins podcast. And he was like, what's one small thing you can do every single day? And packing a lunch is not only good because you can monitor the calories. Like Cody, you don't have the problem I have with the big belly and the boobs coming out.
Oh, I do.
Later on in life, but
You're only viewing me from here up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not only a way you can monitor your health, but unless you're breaking bread with somebody, it's, you can monitor your health. You can make sure you can get the right nutrients in your body, but you can also then monitor your wallet and your paycheck, I guess, at the same time. So that being said, if you are the type of person that wants to go out and eat at a restaurant, make sure you're doing it with somebody and you're spending that time with somebody.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Karrasch, Karrasch Real Properties, if you want to follow him online, or The Tom Story Show. So thanks so much. Appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you, man. This was awesome.
Cool. Thanks for listening to the show, folks. Please keep in mind that this show is not offering legal, financial, or accounting advice, but rather opinions and experiences in the world of real estate from the host and the guests. If you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and share with your friends and colleagues. And if you think that there's someone that needs to be on this show, please feel free to connect them with me. Or if there's a topic that should be discussed, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much, and bye for now.